March Madness officially starts on Thursday. Right now, while we're recording, we've got the first play-in game going on, so we'll have to check that out after we get done here. But today, we're going to talk about our bracket buster teams, which are two teams that we think can make a run, our first round upset picks, and then we'll talk about a couple other games that we like. And Jake, I see all these TikTok guys and people on Twitter give their advanced analytics for why they think certain teams have more value. But what's your take on that?
I mean, there's definitely something to be said about looking out for trends and knowing what teams have done in the past, how it's going to look to the future, like, with the stock market, right? It's you can't necessarily say that the past is going to impact the future, but it's the best information that we have. So knowing the trends is never a bad thing. However, I do think that a lot of the trends are going to be a little bit passe because of the transfer portal and NIL being such a big thing in recent years, that team compositions have changed so much. And even as we currently stand in this tournament, I think we're looking to that this one could be a one of a kind type thing. And it'll be interesting to see moving forward how the trends change with transfer portal and NIL being so huge.
Well, you've got your daily live stream. I know you give picks all the time, and you've probably already gone over this first round of games. But do you think you're going to follow the trends more? Do you think you're going to stick to your system? What's your game plan going into this tournament?
Combo of both. I mean, there's always things that I look out for every March Madness, and I don't think those will ever change. Things like coaching. You always have to have a good coach, a real coach that can take you all the way to the top, especially if we're talking about teams to win March Madness. I also look for things like senior/upperclassmen leadership. I mean, that's never going to go out of style. Having guys who have been there before, experienced before, there to lead, never going to be hurt. And then lastly is guard play. I know that, I'm a big fan of centers, big fan of big man. But when it comes down to it in a close competitive game, if you need someone to create their own shot, it's always the guard. So those are kind of the big three things I look for. And those are the things I'm going to be looking for in this tournament as well.
It's a good point. Well, let's start off with our bracket buster teams. First up, we've got New Mexico. I think they're an 11 seed. Clemson's a 6. Obviously, New Mexico's the lower seed, and they're from a smaller conference, but they're the 2-point favorite here. And in their last 3 games, they had wins over Boise, Colorado State, and SDSU, but Clemson's off back-to-back losses against Wake and Boston College. So is it this spread and this line that's making you think New Mexico's a team who can make a push, or what is it?
Well, I love the spread, first of all. I mean, I got the snowman specials during the regular season when you have an unranked home favorite against a road ranked dog. And you can kind of extrapolate that to the tournament with a lower seed being favorited over a higher seed. I mean, the Vegas is straight out saying that the wrong team is the seed. And Ken Palm, with their advanced metrics, is saying the exact same thing about New Mexico. They have New Mexico ranked as the 23rd best team in the country, yet they were given an 11 seed. That's a huge discrepancy. And New Mexico's got all the things I was talking about earlier. They've got some great guards, guys like Jalen House, Jamal Mashburn Jr. They had a good coach in Richard Pitino. He's been in the Big Ten, Rick Pitino's son. Rick Pitino did not make March Madness. I'm sure he's going to be helping him out, helping New Mexico out. And they're playing really well. They won the Mountain West tournament, which is a great conference this year. And they're 8-0 this year in neutral site games. So this is a team that has a lot of experience, that played in a very deep conference, that had a lot of wins, got a lot of things I look for. I'm certainly looking out for them to make a good run. I think their bracket is ripe for the pickings for them. And I certainly love them in this spot -2 against Clemson.
Yeah, 100% love them in the spot. I'm taking them. Don't know how far I'll push them in my bracket, but I'm going to have to fill that out tomorrow, so we'll see where I have them. My first one is going to be James Madison versus Wisconsin. Wisconsin, the 5.5-point favorite here. Obviously, they are in the higher seed after they beat Northwestern and Purdue in the Big Ten tournament, and then they went on to the final where they lost to Illinois. But James Madison's got one of the best records in the country with 31 wins. I did look, though. The only really good win they had was at Michigan State in the first game of the season. But even though they only have one premier win on that schedule, I like them still, because even though their schedule's soft, they're still on a 13-game win streak, which I think is the longest in the nation, if I read that correctly. And before the Big Ten tourney, Wisconsin lost 4 of their last 6. So if any team can make, or if any double-digit team can make a push and actually make a dent in this tournament, I think it's James Madison, who's already shown they've got some momentum.
I think James Madison is going to have a tough time with this Wisconsin team because Wisconsin has really good size. They got guys like Steven Krall, Tyler Wall. They can play in the paint. And James Madison is really good on defense, but they're really good on the perimeter and defending the 3-ball. So I think that's going to be a key matchup to look out for. If James Madison's defense can step up in the paint and guarding the big men, I definitely like them in this game. But I don't know. I think Wisconsin is they're a little bit upset after losing that Big Ten championship game, and the end of the season playing pretty well in the Big Ten championship game. So I think it's going to be a very entertaining game. And I think getting the points in a spot like this is not necessarily the worst call.
Yeah, they had a great run in the championship, but again, like you said, 5.5 points is a lot for a team who's on such a good streak. For your first upset pick, You gave me a 13 seed in Samford going up against Kansas. I saw 83% of the public on Kansas, and since they're a blue blood and most people know nothing about Samford, that makes a lot of sense. But this line's at 8.5. Vegas still thinks there's a 37% chance that Samford wins outright. What's your thinking on this?
Yeah, so 8.5 feels pretty sketchy for a Samford team that, they made the tournament. They're 81 overall in Ken Palm rankings, but they don't really have a signature victory to kind of hang their hat on, similarly to James Madison, but without the Michigan State win. They played Purdue in the first game of the season and lost by like 50 points, a complete blowout from the Boilermakers. But they won their conference and they have a very definitive play style. They have a win condition that if they're able to execute it, right? They are the number 6 fastest playing team in the country on offense, 14th overall, and they're top 10 in 3-point field goal percentage and effective field goal percentage. So this is a team that loves to play fast, run and gun. And if they're hitting their threes, they're a very tough out. Kansas, their best 2 players just missed the Big 12 tournament, Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough. And it looks like Hunter Dickinson is going to play. He dislocated his shoulder, popped out of its socket. Should be okay, but again, not 100%. But I'm less confident about McCullough. If he does play, he certainly won't be 100%. And Kansas was very thin to begin this year anyways. They don't have a lot of depth, and those guys certainly cannot take the roles of Dickinson and McCullough. Especially Dickinson, he's the main size in the team. I'm not a huge fan of KJ Adams. Johnny Furphy is a true freshman. I think they're going to have to rely on him a lot, and I'm not, again, a common theme for me in this tournament is I'm not going to rely on teams that are reliant on true freshmen. So I'm a little bit worried about Kansas's health. I'm a little bit worried about their depth. And Samford has a style that can win if they execute properly. So I think Samford is a really good call here for an upset special.
Yeah, as a prime member of the public, I know nothing about Samford, so I fit into that category. But I've been talking to some Kansas fans who don't have them going too far because they said they were going to have 2 of their best guys who might not play, and that could leave them with some depth issues. So I understand that pick, and I'm probably going to ride with you on the points here. But hearing that they lost by almost 50 to Purdue doesn't make me any more confident. I will admit that.
First game of the season. They're better since then.
That's fair enough. Well, my upset is going to be UAB +7 against San Diego State. These are 2 teams who made their conference championship, but UAB dominated in every game. They beat Wichita by 12, USF by 10, and then Temple by 16, a Temple team who I thought would probably keep it closer. 78% of the public's on SCSU to win it, but Vegas thinks UAB has a 42% chance. So I'm going to ride with UAB. I'm going to take the 7 points because I think they can win outright. They're a 12 seed. Last year, there were no 12 seeds who advanced, but this year, I think there's going to be a change.
SDSU made it all the way to the national championship game last year. So having them lose in the first round is a very, very bold call, especially because they do return a lot of the same players from that Final Four team from last year. I like UAB a lot. I think they got kind of dealt a bad matchup because UAB plays a similar style to SDSU. They both like to be physical, bang around on the boards. You got Yaxel Lendenberg, my guy on UAB. He's a beast in the paint. But going up against Jaden Ledee, not a great matchup. I think I like the +7 because UAB is playing really well and they've got guys who can shoot the ball. But I don't know if I see the upset here. We'll see. I'll ride with you on the points, but it's tough for me to fade a team like San Diego State who looked pretty good this season and feels like they're going to be out for revenge with a lot of the same guys returning.
They're definitely going to be out for revenge. Well, we've got a game with a lot closer spread that you like. These are now our best bets. These aren't any crazy favorites. No bracket buster teams in here. Drake's a 10 seed. Washington State's a 7. It's basically a pick 'em. Drake's a popular upset pick. Who are you taking?
Yeah, so another situation similar with the New Mexico game where the lower seed is in fact the favorite. And another situation where I'm going to ride the lower seed favorite here. I like Drake a lot. This is a team that is one of, if not the best mid-major teams in the entire country. It's probably between them and McNeese as the top overall one. But Drake, they had a very impressive win over Indiana State in the Missouri Valley Conference championship game. And they have a guy on their team, Tucker DeVries, who is one of the best players in the country. He's top 10 in scoring. And the guy is a junior who made it to the tournament last year. And in their game last year, he was 1 of 11 for only 3 points as they lost in the first round. So he is definitely out for revenge. Now add the fact that the head coach of Drake is his father, right? So this is probably the last opportunity for them to make the tournament. There is no guarantee that they're going to win their conference for a 3rd consecutive year next year. Who knows if he wants to potentially go for the NBA. So this is, I think, the last chance for Drake with the father-son duo. Wazoo is a really good team that's really physical, but Drake has been there before. Washington State hasn't. I think Drake is going to use last year for big motivation. And I don't think that Wazoo can stop DeVries if he gets cooking. So I'm riding Drake here. I think they look really good.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about that storyline, but that all lines up to be an interesting spot, especially when your star player and your coach have that connection. They're on a 5-game win streak, and Washington State lost 2 out of their last 3. They lost to Colorado in the Pac-12 tournament. They didn't advance to the championship. I don't even think they got to the semis. But I'm going to take Washington State here. They've got recent wins over Oregon, UCLA, and Arizona. And since they've proven that they can beat good teams in meaningful games, I'm going to stick with them, even though they're a short dog. Another team with a strong storyline, especially because of who they're playing right now. Nebraska's an 8 seed, Texas A&M's a 9 seed. You've got the athletic director transition. You had Trev Alberts at Nebraska, who was loved by all the fans. He said all the right things. He's a former player. I mean, everyone knows the story. Out of nowhere, leaves Nebraska for the same job at A&M, which feels like a bit of a lateral move. Then you've got the Tominaga Magic and all the talk around him. I saw him on Pat McAfee's show this morning where they were talking about him and that he's going to be a guy that they're all watching. So I think between those two storylines, there's so much hype with Nebraska. That's, in my opinion, why they're probably the favorite in this spot. But then I went and checked. Who has the better odds to advance to the Sweet 16? Nebraska is at plus 500. You know where A&M's at? Plus 900. So why, if Nebraska is assumed to be the better team, or at least going to be better in matchups down the road, why are they only a 1-point favorite in this spot? Either way, I'm going to take them, but an interesting thing to look out for.
I like that, using the odds from elsewhere around the book to kind of compare. I think that's a really sharp way of shopping around. Maybe that's a little bit because they think that Nebraska may be a better matchup against Houston in the next round versus Texas A&M would be against Houston, but to be almost double it is a little bit egregious. I like Nebraska also in this game. Texas A&M is the number 1 overall offensive rebounding team in the country. They get an offensive rebound on 42% of their offensive possessions, just an obscene number. Basically, every 10 missed shots, 4 of them come back to them. And the great thing about offensive rebound, right? You fire a shot, you miss. You get the offensive rebound, you fire another one and make it. You went 1 of 2 in the box score, but you had 1 possession and 1 bucket. So every offensive rebound functionally takes away a missed shot, which is why Texas A&M has been so successful this year, even though they are a bottom 10 3-point percentage team in the entire country. Nebraska is basically the exact opposite, right? They're a top 35 3-point shooting team in the country with guys like Tominaga, who's a complete beast. They are a more finesse team. They love to run around, play fast, fire up shots. And if they're hot, I think it's going to be very tough for Texas A&M to keep pace. Nebraska's also been banging around with teams in the Big Ten all season, going against big centers, Zach Edey, Khalil Ware, Dane Danger, plenty of big guys. They got experience going against physical teams. I think it's a good matchup for Nebraska. I'm going to ride with them too.
I like it. I'm a Nebraska fan, so I'm pulling for them. I want to see them get their first tournament win ever. A team who has a lot of tournament wins, Michigan State, is a 1-point favorite over Mississippi State. And 60% of the public is going to take Michigan State in this spot, which makes sense. They're a prestigious basketball program, and I'm going to assume they're your pick. So why are you rolling with MSU?
Well, MSU versus MSU. Obviously, MSU has to be the pick here. But yeah, I am on Michigan State for kind of similar reasons, right? As I just talked about with Nebraska. Mississippi State is a very physical team, right? If you watch their game against Tennessee, they dominated that game on defense. Tennessee could barely pass the ball, in between their interior defense, let alone get shots up. So Mississippi State, very good team, very physical team. Could definitely see them winning. But similarly, Michigan State has been in the Big Ten playing big physical teams. The Big Ten is the most physical league every single season. Michigan State is a very, very deep senior-laden team with guys like Tyson Walker, AJ Hoggard, Malik Hall, and a coach in Tom Izzo who owns March. I mean, this guy is one of, if not the best coaches in the entire country and the entire tournament. And with no offense to Chris Jans, I think that it's a huge coaching advantage for Michigan State. So you add in a relatively equal talent advantage. And while Mississippi State does have a great defense and a physical team, Michigan State is actually the 8th overall ranked defense in the country, higher overall than Mississippi State. I think they got the better overall numbers. They got the better coaches. They got the better players. Again, I talked before about true freshmen. Mississippi State's number 1 offensive threat is Josh Hubbard. Great player, but he's a 5'10" true freshman. Not the kind of guy I won't put my money on going up against Tom Izzo. So I'm riding Michigan State for sure.
It's interesting that you say that Tom Izzo has the coaching advantage, and Michigan State is obviously the team who people would want to take because they're the program who everyone knows and everyone recognizes as a basketball school. So why is the line only 1? I think it should be bigger, and I think that they should be at least a 3-point favorite, even if the talent is pretty similar on the court. So because the line is so short and because Mississippi State's not the popular pick, I'm going to fade the public. I'm going to take Mississippi State and go against you here. Our last game, we've got Dayton and Nevada. Nevada a 10 seed, Dayton a 7 seed. I've only got one reason to roll with Nevada over Dayton. They're plus 450 to make the Sweet 16, and Dayton's plus 750. I use the Nebraska strategy. But why do you think this line's so close and the odds are so much different in terms of who can make a deeper run?
I think Nevada, as all the Mountain West teams got relatively underseeded, right? You can see the bookmakers clearly don't agree. They've made Nevada the outright favorite in this game, just like they made New Mexico the outright favorite in their game. Colorado State in their playing game is the outright favorite. So books giving a lot of respect to Mountain West teams because the committee gave them some disrespect. I think Nevada's got a lot of things that I looked for. We talked about at the beginning of the show, right? A lot of senior leadership. Keenan Blackshear, Jared Luke has been there for a long time. They want this bad. At the guard position, they got a coach in Steve Alford, who's been around the block. He's been on coaching of a lot of big teams, Iowa, UCLA, former Indiana Hoosier legend, great player. And they've had some great wins this season, including out of conference against TCU, against Washington. They've played good teams. They had a really, really good run in the Mountain West. And Dayton, Dayton obviously had an incredible season. But when they played big time matchups, for the most part, they lost. They lost to Houston on a neutral site. They lost to Northwestern. They lost to Duquesne in the tournament. They lost to Loyola Chicago, George Mason, VCU, Richmond, all on the road, right? We talk about sometimes that when you have a team that's super dominant in their conference in a mid-major, every single time they go on the road, it's that other team's Super Bowl. And that was kind of the situation that Dayton was in this year. And they didn't really get a ton of wins in those spots. So they didn't have a number of wins that you would expect from them. Nevada, underrated by the committee. I like Nevada here too.
Fair enough. Well, if you want to take any of these picks that we've talked about today, you can sign up in the link in the description box below for BroThrow at brothrow.com/YouTube. The invite code to get onto the site is YouTube. Any of the bets that we put up on the screen that say plus 100 mean that if you bet $10, you win $10. There is no VIG. You can sign up from any state in the U.S. You get better odds on the money line than you can find anywhere else online. Again, totals and spreads are at plus 100 odds, so they pay out even money. It's the best deal you'll find, and you sign up easily right through that link. Jake, thank you for your picks. I'm excited. I'm going to make my bracket tomorrow. I'm going to obviously consult you. I'll be on your live stream to check out more of the games that you think are going to go in your favor, obviously, and I might have to ride with you on those.
Sounds good. I'll see you there, and I'll see you in the next one.
Talk to you soon.